So far we've been talking about a put operation. And let me repeat again. When you are looking at a put operation, the coordinator will reach out to all the live replica nodes. Please keep that sentence in mind. Look what it has to say for reads. When you are looking at read consistency level 1, the coordinator will reach out to one node only. And this is a huge difference between consistency level of writes and reads. So the coordinator will figure out one among the replica nodes. Again, the replica nodes figuring out, we already know. It's hashing, figuring out where the starting point is, walking the cluster clockwise. By the way, all of that is defined at the time of creating the key space itself, but that doesn't matter. That's an optimization. We know exactly what the replica nodes are. It reaches out to one node only. The big question mark is which node? We have 3 replicas. Which node? Logic says, and if we want to believe in ensuring that Cassandra cluster should be uniformly balanced, Cassandra cluster should be uniformly loaded, if we work backward from those goals, logic says, can the coordinator not look at the gossip information and figure out which node, which replica node has the least load, L-O-A-D, load, and pass on the request to that replica to say that looks like the 3 of you seem to be having fun. You seem to be lightly loaded. So throw some work at that node. How about that? Contact the fastest node. There is also something called as a preferred node. Now imagine this. Suppose the coordinator N1 chose N3 as the replica to send the data back. There is every possibility that the data that N3 just responded back is sitting in memory in cache. So if the same coordinator were to be looking at getting the same data back for the same partition, isn't it logical for N1 to say that, look, let me reach out to N3 again? Because very recently it returned me that data. That data might be hot in its memory. So there is a good chance that I might not have to suffer from a cold start with respect to this partition in N2 and N4. If I ask N3 for the same partition, it might be able to give me back the data rather quickly. I can take advantage of N3's caching. So what N1 can do, it can essentially go out there and what is called as pinning a node for a partition. Again, as a developer, we don't have to worry about it. Look at what all Cassandra does behind the scenes to ensure that it addresses the only non-functional requirement it's designed for, performance. And you can add 2 more, performance and performance. So what is the value that you can set in Cassandra.yaml? By default, it's 10%, which is okay. Dynamic snitch, badness threshold. Now let us consider this situation. And by the way, this pinning of node that a coordinator does, that it's its own cheat sheet. It maintains in its memory that these are the partitions that I've received. Obviously, there is an LRU. Obviously, there is a limited amount of memory. Obviously, the older data will fall off the grid. It's up to the coordinator to maintain this list. It is not liable to share its own cheat sheet with the other replica nodes. Remember, Cassandra is also termed as a share nothing architecture. Every node works on its own, has its own set of stuff to deal with. So if N1 has maintained this little pinning of node, that's up to N1 to maintain. Now consider a situation. Over a period of time, N3's performance degrades. It can happen because remember, N3 is not the only node that is catering to N1. There can be other other nodes, for example, N6 from some other client asking the same data. And N6 also may have chosen N3 because at some point in time, N3 was the least loaded. So a bunch of coordinators is now loading up the replica node N3. So naturally N3's performance will degrade. And it so turns out that now N2's performance is better. So it's unfair for N1 to continue to ask N3 for data. So there's got to be some balance, checks and balance in place to say that N1 should think like this, to say that, oh, N3 at some point in time you were least loaded, right? But looks like you are now struggling. So you know what? I'm going to basically let you go and ask some other replica node for data. While this is an English statement, very logical, very compassionate, that doesn't help code. So in code, we need to quantify that. How do we do that? Dynamic snitch badness threshold, 10%, which means that if N3's performance is 10% or greater worse off than the best performing node at that point in time, I will say, hey, N3, you are no longer my pinned or preferred node. I will now go look into the best performing node at that time, and I'm going to send the traffic there. How awesome is this design? It basically ensures that the coordinators have enough intelligence to sprinkle the load or try to sprinkle the load evenly among all the live replica nodes. But in this case, you notice, because consistency level is only 1, it really is bothered about contacting one node and one node only. So the point is this something that we need to explicitly configure or tune or anything like that? Well, not necessarily.